quite frankly, it's hard to remember all those lies.
This is Angelina. 5 months a bride, now a widow. Her husband, Jose Francisco, discovered dead in the home they had just begun to share. Hello guys. Before we get to our next story, I would like to kindly ask you to like and subscribe. It will really help us. Angelina appeared to be the grieving widow, seemingly desperate to understand what had happened, eager to help investigators find the truth.
We were here because we understand there's a problem. You have some information.
But her story soon began to change, shifting from sorrow to a strange, almost knowing suspicion.
I would think so. People get poisoned by it all the time. It doesn't take much. If there was a tape recorder on, I'd be screwed if I keep answering these questions.
It seemed Angelina was hiding something much darker than sadness. Behind her act, there was a calculating mind at work. And with one careless command, she let out a dark truth. One only the guilty would know.
It could be anything. It could be the flowers on the road. It could be something.
Flowers on the road?
Yeah. You know, they grow in the middle of the highway. I think they're azaleas.
The morning of Saturday, September 9th, 2000, a frantic call from Angelina shattered the peace on Monroe Street, Montebello. She claimed to have found her 41-year-old husband, Frank, unresponsive, face down on their bedroom carpet. First responders arrived to a grim scene. An autopsy, they knew, would be crucial.
When first responders got there, they found Frank in a terrible condition. There was blood coming out of his nose.
Angelina explained that for days, Frank had suffered severe stomach issues. Just days before his death, she had rushed him to Kaiser Hospital.
So I take him in and I said, he's sick. I don't know what it is. He can't stand, he can't talk. I said, he's going up.
Her story continued, rewinding to Tuesday, September 5th. Frank, a dedicated special education teacher, had been called back to Angel Gate Academy, a place where he guided troubled young minds. It was there, amidst the halls of learning, that his path first crossed with Angelina. Also an educator and a single mother to young Autumn. A workplace connection that blossomed, or so it seemed, into a marriage just months before. That fateful visit to Angel Gate, Angelina explained, was almost an afterthought, a last-minute call for Frank to chaperone. His name not even on the official staff list. A seemingly unthreatening detail. Yet, the day itself, she claimed, passed without incident.
I get back, I said, so how is everybody doing? They were great. They walked up to me, they hugged me, they missed me, they felt like I was at home, there was no animosity.
Initially, the official narrative leaned towards a natural death, but as weeks passed, Angelina herself began to paint a far more sinister picture.
We were here because we understand there's a possibility. You have some information or believe there's a possibility that your husband was poisoned. Okay.
Her new claim was chilling. The moment Frank returned from Angel Gate, the sickness began.
It wasn't like a constant. It was like maybe once every half hour. He'd throw a little bit up, a little bit up.
So you feeling okay when you went up?
Oh, yeah. I even got up with him.
Did you tell him before he went? Were you concerned?
Oh, yeah. We argued. I said, please don't go.
A direct, almost immediate consequence, in her telling, of that last-minute visit. She portrayed herself as having begged him not to go back, but that he insisted. She now believed that going to Angel Gate Academy was a deadly mistake.
Just come in the office and I'm like hungry or thirsty and Gatorade and cookies.
Ever tell him who offered him a Gatorade?
Somebody in the office.
Somebody in the office.
Okay.
Her accusation was specific. The poison, she believed, was hidden in the food Frank consumed at the academy. But if she was right, what drove such a malicious act?
It looked a little flushed, and I thought, well, okay, maybe he's tired. About 7:30, he started crying.
Angelina didn't hesitate to name her prime suspect, Chad Holloway, Frank's supervisor. Again, when in doubt, just blame the supervisor. The poison, she alleged, was delivered via spiked snacks. Her reasoning? A volatile history at Angel Gate Academy, where Frank had reportedly uncovered unsettling behavior by Chad. These weren't just whispers. Frank and Angelina had formalized their concerns, triggering a cascade of terminations and shakeups at the institution.
Once you see the reports that were filed, they were initiated for Frank and myself. That's how all of this started.
According to Angelina, the trouble didn't stop at the academy. It affected their personal lives too. Even though the board ignored the official reports, Angelina said she was still scared. She believed that Frank's actions had made some people very angry.
And I was just like, how can you just let him walk around here?
But Angelina's narrative wasn't finished. It twisted into an even darker, more personal accusation, as she recounted.
This person had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them. He looked at Frank and he went like this, and he went, right, dead on, eye to eye.
Angelina said Chad had looked her in the eyes and made a frightening threat. To her, it was clear proof that he meant harm. As she told this story, full of fear and danger, she also made a strange request to the detectives, one that caught their attention and made them suspicious.
Is there any way that you push him?
Angelina kept pushing her story, blaming Chad Holloway and Angel Gate Academy. She truly believed Frank was poisoned there by Chad. So the investigation began to focus on the man she pointed to.
I was under the impression, before they talked to me, that they were so convinced I did this, that they had stopped at the sheriff's department, had basically told them to prepare to book me.
Chad Holloway, facing these grave accusations, was understandably shaken. Yet, despite Angelina's certainty, investigators found no concrete proof.
And it's also one of the worst things to be accused of if you didn't do it.
That was probably the scariest thing that had ever happened to me in life. I've been to war. I was in Desert Storm. A lot of things happen in combat. I had never in my life been that scared. I can't even describe how angry I was.
Then, investigators made an important discovery. The things Angelina was accusing Chad of had already been looked into before, and there was no proof. The damage from a false accusation can ruin someone's name and life. Could that be a reason for revenge?
When you said that you wanted to take a gun and put it to the head of the person who made those accusations against you, you didn't know it was Angelina you were talking about at the time.
I did not.
But once you found out it was Angelina who made those accusations, I'm guessing you probably thought about putting your gun to her head.
Chad admitted seeing Frank looking sick 4 days before he died.
When was the last time you saw Frank?
I saw Frank the Tuesday after Labor Day 2000. Frank looked absolutely terrible.
Angelina's accusations hang heavy in the air. Yet the evidence against Chad remained elusive. In a case as murky as this, absence of evidence wasn't absence of guilt, but they needed something concrete. And then it arrived. The toxicology report screamed poison, fatal levels of ethylene glycol, the lethal core of antifreeze.
Frank's body actually had 6 times the necessary amount to kill him.
For Angelina, this was it. The clear proof that would finally bring justice for Frank. But the investigators knew it wasn't that easy. One key thing was missing. Proof that Chad even knew Frank would be at Angel Gate that day. Poisoning someone like that takes planning. But without evidence Chad expected Frank to be there, the claim didn't fully add up. The case still had big gaps, and they needed more details while waiting for the full autopsy report. As investigators dug deeper into the weeks surrounding Frank's death, a spotlight began to swing back towards Angelina herself. Her behavior, her interactions, start to paint an unsettling picture, raising new, uncomfortable questions.
She calls police almost on a daily basis. She wants to know what the latest is, if there's been any update.
Something about her seemed off. She didn't act like a heartbroken widow. She seemed too focused on herself. Was she really after justice for Frank? Or hiding something darker? Just days after he died, she called Detective Wilson, not to talk about him, but to ask about getting rid of his body. When they told her they didn't know yet how he died, she didn't show any emotion. Then she kept calling the coroner's office again and again, urgently asking for updates.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner? No word from the coroner yet?
Well, they don't have anything yet. It takes time for this type of stuff.
Oh.
You know, unless they know what they're looking for.
We need a cause of death. And at this time, we're thinking that she knows what that cause of death is.
Both sides seemed to want the same thing, to find out how Frank died. But investigators felt like something wasn't right, like a game was being played. It was time to act. They decided to put pressure on Angelina to see if the truth would come out from behind.
It could be anything. It could be the flowers on the road. It could be something.
Flowers on the road?
Yeah. You know, they grow in the middle of the highway. I think they're azaleas.
At this point, we believe she knows exactly what it is. There's no doubt.
But she's trying to get you to say it.
She would rather, I think, have us say it. And of course, we'd rather have her say it.
Seeking another perspective, another piece of the truth, investigators turned to those who knew Frank best, his family.
She was claiming that one of his coworkers had put poison into his Gatorade. She's telling me this, someone's poisoned your brother's story. And I said to her, Angelina, I just don't understand this. You know, how does someone poison a person? She says, oh, there are lots of ways you can poison someone. She said, for instance, she says, we have a flower out here called oleander. She said, you can make a tea out of that. You can make a soup out of it. And, you know, it's a poison. When we were riding in the limousine, she pointed right out and said, those are oleander bushes.
And indeed, Frank's sisters, Shirley and Rebecca, voiced their own terrifying suspicion. Oleander, a beautiful yet deadly plant. They had brought this fear to Sergeant Holmes. The detectives logged the theory, but it came with a daunting challenge. Standard toxicology rarely screened for oleander. They weren't just hunting a potential killer, but perhaps a ghost in the chemical profile. A poison designed to vanish.
Any chance that this was going to turn out not to be a murder and that what Frank died of was either natural causes or food poisoning or something like that?
Absolutely. We were dependent upon what the coroner's office was doing, what they would find or wouldn't find. But in the meantime, you can't stop investigating.
The family kept asking for a closer look, and the idea that something bad had happened kept growing. Then, on October 19th, over a month of waiting for answers, the case suddenly took a new turn. Angelina called Sergeant Holmes, and what she said next added another strange and troubling piece.
It was about maybe 5 or 10 after 8. Because I was on my way back from dropping my daughter off at school. I would get this call, and it was blocked. They said wanted to tell me what was going on because they had a lot of respect for Frank, but they couldn't tell me who they were because they know how Holloway is. And they said, you need to know a conversation I had with Holloway. He had said, they do try and track it down. They can't pin me because, and they said,
They can't pin me.
can't pin me. It started breaking up, and all I heard was, ask them about antifreeze.
Antifreeze, not only Andrew.
Not only Andrew this time.
Had antifreeze even been on your radar screen at this point?
At this point, no, I don't believe it had been.
This anonymous caller told her to tell them to look for antifreeze.
This is the first time that antifreeze has been mentioned to police, and it comes directly from Angelina.
Antifreeze. The anonymous caller, she claimed, had specifically uttered that word. This was new. Antifreeze hadn't been on anyone's lips in this investigation until now, and it was Angelina herself bringing it into the light. Who was this phantom caller? How did they know her number? Angelina's report inspired the sergeant to action.
You got her phone records.
I got her phone records, yes.
And?
Lo and behold, there had not been any calls anywhere near incoming or outgoing to Angelina's phone at that time.
Her behavior became more confusing, and the case started to take a strange turn. Investigators struggled to understand if what she said was true. Then the full autopsy report came in, and it was shocking. Oleander. The deadly poison was found in his body, confirming one of their darkest fears. December 12th, detectives made their next move. They told Angelina they were going to question Chad about Frank's death. While she waited to hear back, her phone rang. The caller, Chad Holloway.
Huh? Angelina? Yes? Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
What is this?
My main question, Angelina, is how...
How did you get my number?
Angelina, I'm just wondering how in the world... This could ruin my life.
You know what? You need to call the investigator. I'm ending this conversation.
Okay, Angelina.
But this wasn't a normal phone call. It was a trap set by the police. They weren't just with Chad. They were pretending to be him, controlling everything that was said. The call was recorded.
At one point you say, Angelina, you're going to ruin my life. Which actually, although it's maybe part of the script for that call, it's kind of true, given what she tried to do to you before.
It was. But inside, I knew it was the other way around. You're not going to ruin my life anymore. It's your life that's going to be ruined because of this.
Just when it seemed the orchestrated call might not provide the breakthrough they hoped for, Angelina herself picked up the phone. And in her panicked report of Chad's threatening call, she was about to hand investigators a gift, drawing them closer to a truth she desperately tried to hide.
I just got a phone call from Holloway.
Holloway called you?
Yes. He said, how can you, the detectives just told me that they think I killed Frank with antifreeze, and
That's what we told him.
and he says, you know, I wouldn't go spreading these things or else. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, I don't need to be talking to you. And he says, well, they'll never be able to catch me anyway. But he says, you know, you just gotta watch your back. He says, you better watch your back.
Oh, God. Okay.
I am scared to death.
Angelina calls police and says, oh my gosh, Frank's old coworker just called me and now he's threatening me. Angelina doesn't know is that the joke's on her. Of course, the police knew that the coworker had called her.
Angelina kept denying everything, showing no signs of confessing. But investigators knew there might be other ways to get to the truth. They spoke to someone close to her, her friend, Palmyra Gorham. Palmyra remembered something Angelina said back in late July. At the time, it seemed casual, but now, after Frank's death, it sounded deeply disturbing.
There was another conversation on the telephone with Palmyra. Angelina told her she was making a milkshake for Frank, and a special milkshake for him. And Palmyra questioned if Frank was sick, and Angelina told her, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Those words, not yet, seemed small, but looking back, they felt like a creepy hint of what was coming. Palmyra also shared another secret about Angelina's life. She had been having an affair with Palmyra's nephew, Lauren Morens. What started as casual meetings had turned into a hidden relationship, even though Angelina had just married Frank, her fourth husband. Palmyra said Angelina had also told her she wasn't happy in the new marriage. Maybe it was just a dark joke. At the time, Palmyra didn't think much of it. She never imagined it could hint at something truly awful. Meanwhile, detectives tested Angelina. They told her that if Chad was guilty, they needed proof he knew Frank would be at Angel Gate. Soon after, they started getting a bunch of anonymous faxes and letters, all trying to support Angelina's story. Everything was starting to come together, creating a clear and troubling picture. Suspicious phone calls, strange letters, things only the killer would know. And now, Palmyra's shocking story. It was all too much to ignore. Detectives Stain Wand and Holmes knew it was time. On February 7th, 2001, they headed to Angelina's new home, carrying the truth with them.
Good morning. Morning. How's it going today?
Okay.
We got a little problem.
What?
Les Holloway was visiting you guys on Friday. Holloway couldn't have done this. The stuff that Frank had in his stomach was he had to ingest within a couple hours of his death. They found it in his stomach, the liquid, the antifreeze, and it has to, liquids purge every couple hours.
Angelina, did you give Frank antifreeze?
No, I didn't. I love my husband. I would not do that.
Let's think about this a second. You're the only person with him. You're taking care of him. You're feeding and giving him liquids to drink.
I didn't.
It's important to be honest and truthful.
I know it is. I know it is. I mean, I've been trying to get to the bottom of all this from day one. I mean, I love my husband. I wouldn't put my family through this hell.
For 35 minutes, the detectives asked tough, non-stop questions. With each one, Angelina's web of lies started to shake.
We have an abundant amount of information that points that you poisoned Frank.
I didn't poison my husband. I mean, I am willing to take a lie detector test. I did not poison my husband. My husband was sent to me by God. Yeah, we had financial problems, which caused an emotional kind of craziness about it. But you know what? That's common.
What if I was to tell you, with all the information that we've accumulated, that we can pretty much prove that you did?
We need the truth. Gotta have the truth, Angelina.
I did not kill my husband. I didn't.
Only you had the means to do it, the motive to do it, and the ability to do it.
The air in the room grew thick, charged with unspoken accusations and desperate denials, as detectives relentlessly pressed Angelina.
The only information, the only person that supplied any information that Frank was poisoned was you. No one else knew that Frank was poisoned. Only you. Only you knew Oleander. In addition to that, nobody in this entire investigation told us about antifreeze.
And then the final veil was ripped away. They laid bare the harsh truth. All this time, she thought she was masterminded a narrative, perhaps even enjoying the investigative circus. She was, in fact, the star performer.
This entire time, we have used everything you said and followed up on everything you've done and said. And quite frankly, it's hard to remember all those lies. I didn't kill my husband. Okay. You can stand up.
Are you arresting me?
Yes, you are under arrest for another crime.
No! I didn't kill my husband!
We also have a search warrant for your apartment.
Kill my husband!
Angelina, we can prove that you did.
With Angelina in custody, police searched her home. Slowly, the house gave up its secrets. They found a napkin with the sheriff's fax number, proof she was behind the anonymous tips. Then something even more disturbing, a paper full of numbers and notes. It showed her plans for spending the $250,000 life insurance money.
It contained all the amounts of insurance money she stood to gain. She even calculated the interest she would earn from the insurance payout.
That one piece of paper showed just how cold and calculating she was. She had carefully written out the money she expected to get, even the interest. It was clear she was thinking about greed, not grief. And just when police thought they had the full picture, one more detail stood out.
Angelina had an oleander plant growing over the fence.
But the timing of her greed was even more shocking. On the same morning Frank died, at exactly 10:17 a.m., just hours after his body was found, Angelina made a phone call.
Within only a few hours of Frank's death, Angelina calls the insurance agent and asks him how quickly she could get her payout.
She's doing things that are so incredibly stupid and self-destructive that she's practically waving a flag at everybody saying, it's me, I'm the one.
The evidence built from Angelina's own actions and words was now complete and airtight. With her in jail, the persecutors got ready to present their strong case against her.
The prosecution in this case portrayed the defendant as calculating, manipulative, premeditated, committing an unspeakable act for greed.
It was painful for him. It was a painful death.
But even from behind bars, awaiting trial in March 2001, Angelina's capacity for manipulation didn't cease.
Angelina's just desperate. She calls and asks her to lie to investigators about a conversation they had had.
Palmyra stayed strong, guided by her conscience. But Angelina took this as a threat, and her next plan was even more terrifying. In May 2002, still in prison, she decided Palmyra had to die. The plan was shocking and heartless, even for experienced investigators.
She told her cellmate she would pay $20,000 to whomever would carry out the hit.
Gwendolyn Hall, who was about to be released, and it wasn't just talk. Angelina gave her detailed instructions on how to do it.
When you go in the front door, it's going to be the living room. Okay? And then you'll see the dining room right there. It's not a big house. Then you'll go around, you'll see a kitchen, okay? You gotta go up through the kitchen, up 2 steps. You hear me? And then you're gonna make a quick left, and you'll see the kids' room. Then you make a quick right, and their bedroom is the last door on the left.
They like to follow her in or something.
But in the closed world of the prison, loyalty is a shifting shadow.
The very person that Angelina asked to do a hit turned around and told authorities what Angelina was doing.
Gwendolyn Hall, the woman entrusted with this deadly contract, had other ideas. The would-be hit woman became the informant.
Do you think that if they made it look like a suicide, they'd be bright enough to figure a way to do that? They can do it robbery gone bad, or they can make it look like the boyfriend gone bad.
Gwendolyn played her part, continuing the conversations, drawing out the details.
I was thinking like the heroin part, just asking them to get a whole bunch. An incredible, a ridiculous amount. And just, you know what I mean? Just pump it into her that it's way too much.
But just knowing the truth wasn't enough. They needed to see how Angelina would react if she thought her plan had worked. So, the investigators came up with a bold idea. They would fake Palmyra's murder. This dark and carefully planned trick was meant to be the final step.
Basically, stage her death. We'd have her on her bed in her house with a fake bullet hole, fake blood.
That picture's pretty convincing.
It was very convincing, yes.
June 2002, a new player entered Angelina's prison world. Antonio Davis, a detective posing as the hitman, bringing proof of the deed. And in that moment, facing the supposed executioner of her friend. Angelina's relief, her cold satisfaction, stripped away any lingering doubt about her monstrous intent.
Something's happened to your friend. Okay?
Oh, what?
Right. Okay?
Where did you get those from?
You need to contact your family. Okay?
Oh my God. I thought you were kidding. I am so ready to go home.
With every recorded word, every calculated move, the depths of Angelina's ruthlessness became clearer. She would stop at nothing. But perhaps the most heartbreaking piece of this grim puzzle came from an innocent, her own daughter, Autumn. On the day of her mother's arrest, Autumn recounted the memory. A special bottle of Gatorade just for Frank. A bottle she was forbidden to touch. Angelina had even enlisted her daughter, unknowingly, in her deadly charade, urging Autumn to help give Frank the drink. That final night, Autumn remembered her mother's insistence. Frank had to finish that red Gatorade. Money was tight, she had said. Every drop. Then came the key financial clue. In July 2000, just 2 months before Frank died, Angelina took out a $250,000 life insurance policy in his name. It didn't look like protection for their future. It now seemed like the main part of a carefully planned and deadly scheme.
And she started to tell him all the reasons why that she felt they needed insurance. And she was doing such a good job that I just sat there and shut my mouth and I said, hey, I'm going to let her do the selling. She called me and she said, I have some bad news. My husband's dead. And I said, wow.
The insurance money, the strange milkshake, the poisoned Gatorade, the oleander in Frank's body. Each one was part of a carefully planned murder. But as the trial went on, more darkness from Angelina's past began to surface. Things got so disturbing that her ex-husband Tom started asking a heartbreaking question. Could their daughter Alicia, who died years ago in what seemed like a tragic accident, have also been one of Angelina's victims? He and Angelina had married in 1987 and had 2 daughters, Autumn and Alicia. In 1992, during a trip to Michigan, they got a warning that Alicia's pacifier had been recalled for safety issues. Months later, that warning turned into a real-life nightmare.
Her daughter choked on a pacifier.
These pacifiers have been recalled because of either deterioration or failure.
After Alicia's death, Angelina sued Gerber and got a $750,000 settlement. Now, with growing suspicion around Frank's murder, even her ex-husband Tom had to face a terrible thought. Was Alicia's death not an accident, but a cold early test of what was to come? At this point, it seemed clear who killed Frank. The only question left was when justice would finally be served. The affair with Lauren Morenz revealed something even more disturbing. Just a week before Frank died, Angelina had allegedly told Lauren she had already tried to kill Frank by leaving the gas line open in the garage. She was hoping for an explosion, or that he would breathe in the fumes and die. Lauren didn't tell anyone, afraid of getting involved, but police records backed up the story. On September 3rd, Frank had reported a gas leak. A technician found the line loose and tampered with. Frank had narrowly escaped death once, which may have led Angelina to try a different, more hidden way to kill him. Finally, on January 12th, 2004, the scales of justice tipped. Angelina was convicted. The sentence, death. Not just for taking off Frank's life, but for the cold, calculated orchestration of his murder. All for the gleam of financial gain.
I broke and made a few terrible, stupid mistakes, which I regret very much. We all make mistakes. I just picked the wrong time to make mine. But murder is not on that list.
But for Alicia's death, there would be no conviction. That tragedy stayed just out of the law's reach. Angelina's case remains a chilling example of how far someone can go.
I went 10 years thinking that Alicia's death was an accident, so it was like reliving her death all over again.
Every move she made seemed carefully planned and cold, but in the end, her constant hunger for money and control led to her downfall. It all ended with her being found guilty and sentenced to death. Our hearts go out to Frank's family, forever changed by this betrayal. Looking back, we're left wondering, were there missed signs that could have stopped this? And in a case this dark, what does real justice look like? If you want to keep exploring stories like this with us, join our community and be part of the conversation. Like, comment, subscribe. It will really help us to continue this path. Thank you, and be safe.